Hawsons Irons announced 2.3 billion tons ore reserves from its pre-feasibility study. Tom Revy is managing director. Tom, welcome to mining.com.au.
Thanks very much, Michael.
What were the highlights of that pre-feasibility study, Tom?
Look, I think the team at Hawsons is extremely proud about the outcomes of the pre-feasibility and obviously the announcement of the ore reserve. The NPV in terms of round numbers is about 1.4 billion tonnes, which does prove that this is a substantial project. The project will be basically comprise two phases. First phase will have a capital cost of about 3.9 billion Australian dollars, and then within the fifth year of production, that'll move from up to the full capacity, which is a 10 million tonne output of quality plus 68% material. The margins are very attractive. We've adopted a fairly conservative number of about $140, which reflects current pricing in terms of 62% iron and a small premium of 30%, which is, as I said, conservative because it doesn't take into account that additional premium for being a high-grade DRI, direct feed material. So we're very happy with the results and lots of work to do moving forward.
Tom, you said that there was a real emphasis on defining reserves in the PFS.
Yeah, in terms of the reserves, 2.3 billion tonnes is probably one of the largest reserves of magnetite in the world. It's up there with some of the biggest. It makes us a material player, both in production and obviously in reserve. And I think in terms of reserve, it's important to point out that we've done a lot of work on variability of the material, which we've announced previously, and it's really highlighted the consistency of the material within the design pit. So we're very confident about the product coming out. The other thing about the 2.3 billion tonnes is that it's roughly 100% over and above the payback period. So in discussions with debt financiers, etc., that should give them a fairly high degree of comfort.
What are some of the opportunities you see coming out of the PFS?
Well, there's quite a few. Obviously, things like the byproduct potential is could be fairly material, and certainly over the next few months we'll be putting a lot of emphasis on that in terms of potential extraction of a byproduct, which of course has been excluded as part of the PFS. Further drilling during the course of next year is aimed at not only expanding reserves and resources, but also generating a large-scale sample, which ultimately will send off to the VRM, the vertical roll mills people, and then send the subsequent product from that down to the various other vendors associated with magnetic separation, etc., just to de-risk the project that little bit more and to basically obtain quality information that will go into the DFS, which will start next year. I think another major one will be the review of materials handling, particularly around waste management. We believe that there's significant opportunity there as well, and potentially product grade improvements. And one that I wanted to emphasise was, it's an easy one, infill drilling of the inferred material that sits around and within the current reserve, which is currently basically the assumption's been made that it's waste. We know it's not waste, but with a bit of infill drilling, that can be added and that can have a material impact in terms of the economics, particularly at the early stages moving forward.
Lastly, milestones over the next 12 months, Tom.
Well, over the next 12, I mentioned some of them. Obviously, it's to look at some of these value-add options. That'll be the immediate focus, and the board's reviewed these opportunities and decided to initiate an accelerated program in terms of looking at these options, looking at the technical viability, converting that to financial viability, and determining if it's in or out as part of the feasibility moving forward. So that'll be our initial focus. During next year, as I said, there'll be drilling for the large-scale piloting to basically extract the process design criteria that the engineers use for engineering purposes and costing moving forward, equipment sizing, power draws, etc., all critical towards de-risking and having a quality feasibility study. and a number of other things, increasing the reserves resources, as I mentioned. And of course, the big one is commencement of the feasibility study, that final feasibility study that provides our investors and financiers the comfort that this project will move forward.
Tom, thanks for speaking with mining.com.au.
Thanks very much, Michael.